Well, good morning. Pleasure to be here in New York. Appreciate the invitation to speak about some work we've been doing at Dartmouth. Dartmouth is probably the smallest of the NCI-accredited cancer centers. I was actually struck by the scale of that smallness yesterday. Folks from Anderson were up here talking and mentioning something on the order of 600,000 patients per year, and that is right in line with the total population of the state of Vermont where I live. And in comparison, we're treating approximately 1,000 patients per year. Anyway, I'd like to describe to you some work we've been doing with Cherenkov imaging so that we can monitor not just the patient, but also the beam during treatment. Here's my disclosures. The work is by and large supported through NIH grants. In fact, it's totally supported by NIH grants. Dose Optics is a little spin-off company which was created by some of the Thayer School of Engineering faculty. I am not involved in that whatsoever. I was chief of clinical physics at the time and decided I did not want the conflict of interest. So I've got no skin in the game there. Vision RT is kind enough to invite me to speak at this conference, but other than that, there is no conflict there at all. All the human studies that I'll be describing have been approved by the Dartmouth IRB, and this is a collaboration between Thayer School of Engineering, Dartmouth Health, and Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center, and it's a great team. So anyway, I'll talk a little bit about physics, just because hopefully you've had your coffee and you can stay awake through it. So Cherenkov light is produced by charged particles going through matter. Well, we're starting off with X-rays. X-rays do not have any charge associated with them, but through radiolysis of water, photoelectric effect, or the Compton effect, we can get free electrons streaming through, and of course, as you know, it's the electrons that are actually delivering the dose to the patient. As the electrons are traveling through the tissue, they create this Cherenkov emission, which is visible light. Okay, so if the electron moves through tissue at faster than the speed of light in that tissue, you create a polarization, and the relaxation of that polarization results in visible light. Unbeknownst to you, or knownst to you, you've seen this in the media reports from events such as Chernobyl or Fukushima, where they like to show pictures of the decaying nuclear fuel rods, and there's this eerie blue-green glow that's emitted, and that is Cherenkov emission. It's named after Pavlov Cherenkov, who discovered that his experiments in the 30s with radioactive materials seemed to have this blue-green glow. He wins the Nobel Prize for that, as did Frank and Tam, who worked out the mathematics to describe the yield of Cherenkov light as a function of beam energy, basically hitting the tissue. So as you can see here from the Monte Carlo plot, the amount of light emitted is proportional to the dose that's been delivered in the medium. And so for a monoenergetic beam, anyway, even a polyenergetic beam, one can get these linear plots, and it makes you really excited that if we measure the light coming off the patient, then the patient can be their own dosimeter. It's a little more complex than that, and I'll touch on it later. 2013, Dr. Pogue walks into my office and says, hey, I've heard about the Cherenkov emission. They're using it for some molecular studies, and wonder if we can see that in therapy. And I said, oh yeah, we've known about this forever. It's in all the textbooks, even going back to Johns and Cunningham, but no, you can't see it in therapy because it's too dim. We all know this. But the Linux down the hall and go give it a try. So that's kind of the Dartmouth way. Everything is open to everybody, and you can try whatever you want to. We try to invest in each other's success rather than competing with each other because we're so small. It's the only way we can stay in business. So the next morning, the graduate student, Rongjiao Zhang, walks into my office, big smile on his face, and he's got a picture of a beaker of water that's glowing blue-green. and off we go. So this company, Dose Optics, eventually was formed, and they've created the camera that you see on the screen, and the product is called BeamSight. And the trick is that the linear accelerator is delivering radiation in pulses. And so if you gate the camera to the accelerator and only acquire a frame during an X-ray pulse, then you've eliminated all this dead time where you've got nothing but room lights on, and so you actually have a chance to image the Cherenkov emission. So this is just sort of a CCD camera. It's got an image intensifier between the lens and the camera chip, and we use a remote trigger unit, which is just looking for stray radiation in the room, and every time there's a pulse out of the LINAC, the RTU gets a pulse and it takes a frame out of the camera, and so we can then image. So here's a breast cancer patient being treated. You can see the field glowing, and here's the various control points for the treatment. You can appreciate them. And if we get back to the full frame, the other thing that you can appreciate, especially in breast treatments, is that there's a significant amount of superficial vasculature. You can see it there, actually, in the inferior portion of the breast. And the blood that's in those vessels is red, and so it's attenuating significantly the blue light which is being emitted from the Cherenkov beam, and so you see the shadow of the vessel. And you can easily imagine, just extrapolating from portal imaging, that one could define the vessels and measure the distance to the field edge and use that as an indication of accuracy, not just to the external surface, not just to the bony anatomy, but actually to the soft tissue that's being treated in this particular clinical venue. So this is a picture of an abnormal room. This is our Trilogy accelerator, and what you see in addition to the vision pods are, on the right-hand side anyway, are more vision pods. So we've got an experimental system as well as the clinical system in that room, and then you've got these Dose Optics cameras that are hanging directly next to the Vision RT pods. The reason for the experimental vision system is that just as the room lights might interfere with our signal-to-noise ratio on the Cherenkov imaging, so could the projected light from the vision pods. And so we had an experimental system where we would gate the LED projector inside the vision pod to the radiation treatment beam and turn the LED off during the 3 microseconds that the radiation pulse is coming out. That was a cute trick, and it worked out really well. It's been now implemented, and so here's another view of a patient being treated. You can clearly see the field illuminated on the skin, and at the end of the treatment, you can get the cumulative dose distribution on this color plot, and this can be calibrated to dose in the future. But right now, at least, it gives you a nice indication of where hot spots might be. You can see those in the yellow, and where the cooler edges might be. You can see that in the penumbra of the beam. On the right-hand side here, we've got the real-time view of a patient being treated with a posterior orbit tumor, and what you saw was a glow coming out of the lens of her eye. On the left-hand side of the screen is the cumulative dose image as it's being built up. And you can clearly see now the exit beam as the gantry is rotating around on the right. This particular patient was put into a surgical head frame because of the proximity of the tumor to the optic nerve apparatus. And I'm not sure if we would still do that today with 6-off couch and open face mask, but nonetheless, that's the decision that was made. This cool observation was published in the Red Journal. There's absolutely nothing to learn about mistreatment. This is all according to plan. Nothing really to learn scientifically either, and yet it was the most downloaded paper in 2020 from the journal. It just got people's attention. So we opened up a trial looking at imaging of Cherenkov emission from patients undergoing treatment with basically all comers through treatment machine actually, and we're looking now for errors in treatment or improvements that could be made. So here's first case in point showing patient motion where the chin drops down into the field, and therapists are able to go in the room seeing this and ask the patient to move their chin up and out of the radiation beam. Likewise, contralateral leg, we had a case where the patient was kind of moving around and we got some spill dose over to the contralateral leg, and that could be appreciated in real time and corrected for. We started seeing issues with bolus placement as well. It's been my long time assertion that bolus is actually misspelled and the L should be a G. But so here on the upper image, you see proper place. Sorry about that. And on the lower side, you can see that the bolus has been placed a little inferior of where it needs to be, and so we've got some spill of beam on the medial, which is not achieving the full buildup that the bolus is meant to deliver. Here's another case where you would never have appreciated this, but during the planning session, the therapist or the dosimetrist left a leaf pair open at the inferior portion of the field. And this was delivering such low dose that nobody appreciated it through the plan review. So the dosimetrist didn't notice that it happened, the physician did not notice that it happened, the physicist checking the plan did not notice that it happened, and then on the first day of treatment we see this weird stripe at the inferior portion of the field. And we went back and found that that was in the initial plan and corrected it. Second study, this is a broader study. The first one, excuse me, I was in error, was limited with our IRB through to a certain number of patients. This one was open to all comers. And we're looking for areas of improvement now in patient setup, treatment planning, accessory use or setup, and patient compliance during treatment. So similar to the case shown before, here's patient's chin in the field. And then removed from the field on the right-hand side after it was noted. Turns out this was in the original treatment plan. It was in the very low dose region that people typically don't look at. You don't scroll your dose line all the way down to 0. Everybody's interested in what's the 50% and above and what are we treating. So it sensitizes us that we need to look at where the scatter dose or exit dose is. The bolus placement, very similar to what we've talked about before. On the left-hand side, that bright stripe is light piping, so you see an extremely bright edge on the bolus, and obviously there's a lot of field spilling out from underneath. On the right-hand side of the image, on fraction 20, you can see that the axilla is not completely covered down there on the posterior edge. This is a neat one where the patient gets tired of holding their hand up on the ring and drops their arm into the beam. So what we're looking at here is exit emission from the posterior oblique field on a spine treatment. And so whilst there was no harm done, of course, to the treatment volume, there's no reason to get this exit radiation to the limb. There's no benefit in that. So it points to the importance of being able to actually see the beam and the tissue that it's hitting during the treatment, as well as, bad on us, probably a better immobilization device than just a handheld ring. So it may be something that occurs more often than we know. This is first patient at a new site. So this is a community clinic, and we noticed that there is quite a bit of exit radiation getting to the contralateral breast, which is not intended to be treated. And for young women, this could actually be deleterious because secondary cancers are in fact a function of received radiation exposure, especially for anybody premenopausal. So there's cumulative image showing the same effect on the surface. And this is the real-time images that were acquired during those treatments, and you can see that really there's extraordinary coverage of that contralateral side. This was taken back to planning and corrected early on in the course of treatment to avoid that issue. It also motivated a change in technique during treatment and review process, where an administrative control was asserted such that people are now supposed to look at the low dose lines in addition to the treatment dose lines. And having been radiation safety officer for a number of years, I learned that administrative controls are perfect because they can address any issue, and they're also worthless because somebody's going to make a human error eventually and forget to do the deed, right? So the visualization, I think, is a really nice mechanical control, or at least a nice indicator of what exactly is going on during the treatment, giving you the possibility to view actual dose from the patient. Now, what we'd like to do is make the system more automated so that incident detection can happen without human intervention, because just like a human might not look at the low dose line, the therapist's eyes may be looking on some other screen. We've got plenty of screens to look at these days, right? And might not see the incident happen. So we're thinking about machine learning, which likely will be diagnosis code based, and try to inform an automated system of what a typical field should look like for a certain treatment type, compare it to what we see during the treatment, and hopefully raise a flag on the screen, alerting a person to go look into the details of the plan, make sure that it's actually what we would like to see. I apologize, this is quite a busy slide. It's covering two main issues in turning the patient into their own dosimeter. So one, on the left-hand side, is simply skin tone. And so optical light is absorbed as a function of melanin concentration, as shown in the subplot, in that linear subplot below. And so we're right now investigating the combination of Cherenkov cameras with simple color cameras in the room and a color scale, so that we can apply correction factors to linearize the amount of light seen versus skin tone. And we've opened a study in collaboration with Moffitt Cancer Center in Florida, so that we can get a much more representative patient population than what we have in the far northeast. And we'll be reporting on this presumably later in this year. The other issue made it actually into Nature Medicine, and that's one in which we've touched on already, the tissue type. So fibroglandular or muscular tissue is well vascularized and therefore has a tremendous volume of red-colored fluid in it, blood, and that is more attenuating of the Cherenkov emission than, for example, adipose tissue, which is just going to be a simple scattering medium without much absorption. And so Rachel Hachadorian reported on using CT Hounsfeld units as a surrogate for tissue type, and she was able to linearize then the Cherenkov emission intensity between two different patients, one with more adipose tissue, the other with more fibroglandular tissue, and did it for a series of patients, showed that it worked out, and that was great. We're taking this one step further and looking at hyperspectral analysis of the Cherenkov emission coming out of the patient. So if you do a color analysis, you find that Cherenkov light emitted from muscular fibroglandular tissue is going to be more weighted in the longer wavelengths, the red. That's the stuff that's able to pass through the vascular tissue. And the blue will be more heavily attenuated. And so looking at the spectrum coming out of the patient should be helpful to sort out the tissue type and make our correction factors. And the little graphic on the right is just, it's kind of cool that we did the initial studies with the oldest possible technology for color cameras. So this is the old Videocon that news reporters used to heft over their shoulders. It was actually 3 different cameras, 1 for each channel, red, green, and blue. And that's the first system we used. We've gotten a little more sophisticated, and we're going over to a color wheel to investigate that further. So in summary, the Cherenkov emission allows for real-time visualization of dose delivery. It can be recorded and viewed at any later time, not just during the images. Images show daily variations. I didn't get into it, but you can make cool statistics out of where are the vessels inside the field from day to day. Non-ideal deliveries can be due to patient non-compliance or motion during the session, which may or may not be included in your ROI. The accessory placement or bolus is an obvious problem. Setup variations with chin or arm position. I know we're trying to address that with optical surface guidance, but this gives us one more tool. And then suboptimal plans are probably the least likely thing that we would detect without this technology. The Dose RT is a product that's not available yet, but that's going to be integrating Cherenkov emission into the Vision SGRT screen. This is our team. We've got nice collaboration between physicians, engineers, physicists, students, and our fine therapists who really love the system. I didn't mention it, but our latest installation is a TrueBeam that was just installed this past year. The Dose RT screen, or the Dose Optics screen, I should say. Dose RT is not available. Dose Optics screen has basically replaced the in-room monitors. So the therapists like it so much that they have requested the big screen right above the console where they can see the patient in the background image in the room and see the dose being delivered at the same time. This is sort of the vision for the future. I think we need a little better alignment of that Dose Optics camera. You see it kind of pointing up in the air of kind of blue sky ideas or something on that order. But there's a mock-up of what the integrated treatment screen might look like. And that's a few years out. If you can't wait, you can Google up Dose Optics and get a Cherenkov imaging system. Some clinics are doing that, and we love to see it. Happy to take any questions you might have.